The screaming started when the first cow hit the water. Madison's designer bikini disappeared beneath 50 pounds of wet Holstein as her Instagram-perfect pool party turned into a stampede of chaos. But as Sarah watched from her kitchen window, 20 years of betrayal finally drowning in chlorinated revenge, she knew this was only the beginning. Her sister had stolen everything her inheritance, her fiancé, her future. Now, Sarah Martinez pressed her face against the cool glass of her kitchen window, watching the army of workers transform her family's century-old ranch into something unrecognizable. The sound of power tools shrieked across the Colorado plains as men in hard hats installed the final touches on an Olympic-sized swimming pool where her grandfather's prize-winning vegetable garden once grew. "This is insane," she whispered, her breath fogging the glass. "Absolutely insane." Her phone buzzed. Another text from her sister Madison. "Can't wait for you to see the surprise. Pool party starts at 2 p.m. Don't be late." Sarah's jaw clenched. 3 months ago, Madison had waltzed back into their lives after a decade in Los Angeles, armed with a team of lawyers and a will that supposedly gave her half of everything. Their father's will, the one Sarah had never seen before, the one that materialized from Madison's Hermes bag like a magic trick. The ranch had been in the Martinez family for 4 generations. Sarah had worked it every day since she was 12, missing proms and college parties to birth calves and mend fences. While Madison was playing dress-up in Hollywood, Sarah was keeping their family legacy alive through droughts and recessions. And heartbreak now, Madison owned half of it, and she was celebrating with a pool party. Sarah's phone rang. "Martinez Ranch," she answered, her voice tight. "Sarah, it's Tom Bradley from the county assessor's office. I've got some questions about the property modifications out at your place." "What kind of questions?" "Well, we've got reports of major construction without permits, pool installation, electrical work, the whole 9 yards. Now, I know you're not the type to. It wasn't me," Sarah cut him off. "It was my sister. She's part owner now." Silence on the other end. Tom had known Sarah since she was a kid. He'd watched her grow up at 4-H meetings and county fairs, always with dirt under her fingernails and hay in her hair. "Sarah? Honey, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but whoever authorized this work, they're looking at some serious fines. We're talking $20,000, maybe $30,000. And if the EPA gets involved because of the water runoff near Willow Creek, ... Sarah's knees went weak. She slumped against the kitchen counter, staring at the mountain of bills already stacked there. The ranch was barely breaking even as it was. "How long do we have?" "I've got an inspector coming out Monday. If everything isn't up to code by then." The line went dead. Sarah stared at the phone, watching the screen blur as tears filled her eyes. Outside, she could hear Madison's voice, shrill and commanding, as she directed the caterers, No. The sushi station goes by the pool, not the barn. Do you people not understand ambiance?" Sarah wiped her eyes and walked outside. The late afternoon sun hit her like a slap, and she had to shield her, wise to take in the full scope of Madison's surprise. The pool was massive, a crystalline oval that reflected the sky like a mirror. Around it, white tents had been erected, their fabrics snapping in the mountain breeze. Catering trucks lined the gravel driveway, and workers in black uniforms bustled around setting up tables laden with food that probably cost more than Sarah's monthly grocery budget, and there was Madison, standing in the center of it all like a queen surveying her kingdom. She looked exactly the same as she had 10 years ago, perfectly bronzed skin, platinum blonde hair that caught the light like spun gold, and a figure that spoke of expensive trainers and organic everything. She wore a flowing white sundress that probably cost more than Sarah's truck payment, and her smile was camera-ready, even though the only audience was the hired help. Sarah, Madison's voice, could have powered a small city. "There you are. Come see what we've done to this place." "We," Sarah thought. "We." Madison glided over, her heels clicking against the newly installed stone pavers. She grabbed Sarah's arm with manicured fingers, her grip surprisingly strong. "Isn't it incredible? I knew the moment I saw this place again that it had potential. All it needed was vision, someone who understood how to maximize the asset." Sarah shook her off. "Madison, this is our family home. Our grandfather built that barn with his own hands. Our great-grandmother planted those cottonwoods." "Oh, Sarah." Madison's laugh was like breaking glass. You're so sentimental. That's always been your problem. You see the past where I see the future. Sarah looked around at the chaos, at the pool that would never fill because the well couldn't handle the demand, at the catering setup that blocked the path to the cattle pen. What future? You've turned a working ranch into a playground. Exactly. Madison clapped her hands together. And wait until you see the guest list. I've got influencers coming from Denver, photographers from Aspen, even some producers from This is going to put us on the map. The map for what? Madison's eyes gleamed. I'm starting a lifestyle brand, Ranch Living with Madison Martinez, authentic Western experiences for the modern woman. We're going to offer weekend retreats, wellness workshops, Instagram-worthy adventures, the whole ranch as a backdrop for content creation. Sarah felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. You want to turn our home into a tourist attraction? I want to turn it into a gold mine. Madison's voice dropped, and for a moment, Sarah caught a glimpse of something cold and calculating beneath the California sunshine smile. This place has been bleeding money for years. Sarah, I've seen the books. You're one bad season away from bankruptcy. We've survived bad seasons before. You've survived by taking out loans against the property, loans that are coming due. Madison pulled out her phone, swiping through screens. I've been doing my homework. You owe money to half the banks in the state. But with my vision, my connections, my capital, we can turn this around. Sarah's head was spinning. Your capital. You said you were broke when you came back. Madison's smile sharpened. I said I was between projects. There's a difference. She gestured toward the pool, the tents, the small army of workers. You think I paid for this with pocket change? How much did this cost? Enough. Madison's tone made it clear the conversation was over. The point is, it's an investment in our future. In the ranch's future. Sarah looked at her. Sister really looked at her. The designer clothes, the perfect makeup, the confidence that came from never having to worry about money or failure or loss. Madison had always been the golden child, the one who got everything she wanted just by wanting it hard enough. I never signed off on this, Sarah said quietly. You didn't have to. I own half the property now, remember. And according to the partnership agreement, what partnership agreement? Madison's smile was razor sharp. The one you'll be signing tomorrow. My lawyer is coming by at 9 a.m. with the papers. It's all very straightforward. I handle the business side. You handle the operational stuff. Operational stuff? No, the dirty work, the cows, the hay, the maintenance, the things you're good at. Madison's voice was honey-sweet, but the words cut like barbed wire. I handle marketing, branding, customer relations, the things that require ... finesse. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. And if I don't sign, then I'll exercise my right to force a sale of the property. Partition action, I think they call it. Very messy, very expensive, but perfectly legal. Madison checked her watch at Cartier. That probably cost more than Sarah's entire wardrobe. Oh, look at the time. The first guests will be arriving soon. You should probably go get changed. Changed. You can't greet people looking like ... That Madison's eyes swept over Sarah's faded jeans, work boots, and flannel shirt. I had my assistant pick out something appropriate. It's on your bed. Sarah turned and walked toward the house, her mind reeling. Inside, she found a shopping bag on her bed containing a flowing peasant skirt, a white blouse that looked like it belonged on a Hollywood set, and a pair of sandals that wouldn't last 5 minutes in the barn. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the clothes. This was her room, in her house, on her land. She'd been born in this room, had taken her first steps on these wooden floors, had cried herself to sleep here the night her father died, and now Madison wanted to turn it all into content. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from her ex-fiancé, Jake, heard about the party. Madison invited me. Hope that's okay. Sarah stared at the message, her heart hammering. Jake, who had left her 6 months ago because he needed space to figure things out? Jake, who had been suspiciously quiet about his reasons for leaving, who had avoided her calls and texts, who had vanished from her life like he'd never existed at all. Another text, looking forward to catching up. Sarah's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering. To the floor. Outside, she could hear cars pulling up, voices calling out greetings, the sound of Madison's laughter floating through the open window. She walked to her dresser and pulled out a framed photo of her and her father, taken just before he died. He was wearing his favorite hat, the one that had bellow. The sound was unlike anything Sarah had ever heard, a symphony of chaos that would replay in her nightmares for years to come. The thundering of hooves mixed with screams, splashing water, and the crash of collapsing catering tables as 100 head of cattle transformed Madison's picture-perfect pool party into a disaster zone. Thunder hit the water first, his massive bulk creating a wave that soaked the entire pool deck. The bull surfaced, snorting and confused, his horns gleaming in the party lights as he tried to find his footing in the deep end. Behind him, Duchess and 3 other Holstein cows plunged in, their black and white spots disappearing beneath the churning surface. SARAH. Madison's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. "Sarah, what have you done?" Sarah could see her sister standing on one of the catering tables, her white dress soaked and clinging to her body, her perfect hair hanging in wet strands around her face. She was pointing at Sarah with one manicured finger, her expression twisted. With rage and disbelief, the party guests were in full panic mode. Women in designer dresses and impossible heels were running across the ranch property, shrieking as they dodged confused cattle. Men in expensive suits were trying to climb the white party tents, which were collapsing under their weight. The photographer Madison had hired was still taking pictures, his camera flash going off like strobes as he documented the destruction. "This is incredible," he shouted over the noise. "This is going to go viral." Sarah watched Jake trying to help his new girlfriend out of the pool, where she'd apparently fallen when Thunder made his grand entrance. The woman was crying, her tiny bikini askew, her blonde hair plastered to her head. Jake looked around frantically, until his eyes met Sarah's across the chaos. The look on his face was pure accusation. He said something to the blonde, then started pushing through the crowd toward Sarah. She turned and ran. She made it to the back porch of the house before he caught up with her, grabbing her arm and spinning her around. "Are you insane?" he shouted. "You could have killed someone." "Let go of me," Sarah said, trying to pull away. But Jake's grip was iron, and his face was flushed with anger. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Madison's investors are here. Sarah, there are photographers, influencers, people who could make or break this business good," Sarah said coldly. "Maybe they'll break it." Jake's eyes widened. "You did this on purpose." "Of course I did it." On purpose, Sarah yanked her arm free. "This is my ranch, Jake, my family's ranch, and I'm not going to stand by and watch my sister turn it into a theme park. Your sister is trying to save this place. She's trying to save you, save me." Sarah laughed bitterly. "From what? From the life I chose? From the work I love? From the legacy my family built with their own hands? From bankruptcy?" Jake shouted. "From losing everything because you're too stubborn to change." Sarah stared at him, seeing clearly for the first time what she'd been too in love to notice before. "You knew," she said quietly. "You knew about Madison's plans before she came back." Jake's face went pale. "Sarah, that's why you left me. Not because you needed space, not because you weren't ready for commitment, because you knew what was coming. It wasn't like that. What was it like, Jake? Did Madison call you? Did she promise you a piece of the action if you got out of the way?" Jake's silence was answer enough. Sarah felt something break inside her chest, something that had been cracked for months, finally shattering completely. "How long have you two been planning this? Sarah, please, how long?" Jake ran his hands through his hair, looking everywhere except at her face. "She contacted me about 6 months ago, said she was coming home, said she had ideas for the ranch. She asked me not to tell you, said she wanted it to be a surprise." "A surprise?" Sarah's voice was hollow. "And when did you decide to leave?" "Me. I didn't want to hurt you when Jake." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the betrayal settle over her like a shroud. 6 months. They'd been planning this for 6 months, and she'd been too blind to see it. "Who is she?" Sarah asked, opening her eyes. "The blonde in the pool. Her name is Cassie. She's Madison's business partner there. We single quotes, your what?" Jake straightened his shoulders, and Sarah saw a flash of the man she'd thought she'd loved, or together, have been for 3 months. Sarah nodded slowly. "Does she know about us? About our history?" "She knows we used to date." "Used to date," Sarah repeated the words, tasting their bitter flavor. "We were engaged, Jake. We were going to get married." "Sarah, I know this is hard, but hard. Sarah's voice rose. I thought you were dead, Jake. I drove to your apartment, to your job, to your mother's house. I thought something had happened. To you, I couldn't face you, Jake said, his voice barely audible. I couldn't look you in the eye and lie. So you just disappeared instead. I thought it would be easier for who? For you. Jake's face crumpled. For both of us. I thought if I just went away, you'd move on. Find someone better. Someone better. Sarah laughed, but it came out as a sob. Or someone who wouldn't interfere with your new girlfriend's business plans. That's not fair. Fair. Sarah's voice was getting louder again. You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about fair, Jake. Let's talk about how I spent 10 years of my life loving you, supporting you, believing in you. Let's talk about how I turned down a scholarship to veterinary school because you said you needed me here. It wasn't about prettier then. What was it about? Jake was quiet for a long moment, staring at the chaos still unfolding around the pool. Several of the cattle had been corralled by some of the ranch hands who'd finally shown up, but Thunder was still in the pool, looking like he was starting to enjoy himself. Madison offered me a job, Jake said finally, head of operations for the lifestyle brand. Good salary, benefits, travel opportunities, a chance to be part of something bigger, and all you had to do was break up with me. She said it might be easier if I wasn't in the picture when she made her proposal. Less emotional complications. Sarah stared. At him, emotional complications. Sarah's voice was ice cold now. You chose money over love. You chose my sister over me. You chose a life that didn't include the smell of cattle and the sound of roosters and the feeling of honest dirt under your fingernails. I chose a future, Jake said. I chose stability and success, and you chose wrong. Jake's face hardened. Did I look around, Sarah? Look at what you've done. You've destroyed everything. The investors will pull out, the permits will be revoked, the insurance companies will have a field day. Madison will be ruined. Good, and you'll be ruined too. This ranch will be sold for parts, and you'll have nothing. Nothing but your pride, and your cows, and your memories of better days. Sarah looked at Jake, at the man she'd thought she'd spend her life with, and felt nothing but pity. You're right, she said quietly. I'll have my pride, and my cows, and my memories of better days. She turned to walk away, but Jake grabbed her arm again. Sarah, wait. It doesn't have to be like this. Madison's offer is still on the table. You could be part of the lifestyle brand, part of the future. We could work together, all of us. It could be good. Sarah looked down at his hand on her arm, then back up at his face. Let me go, Jake. Just think about it. Let me go. Something in her voice made him drop his hand. Sarah walked into the house, leaving him standing on the porch inside. The house was quiet, except for the muffled sounds of chaos from outside. Sarah walked to her father's study, a room she'd barely entered since his death 2 years ago. Everything was exactly as he'd left it: his books, his papers, his collection of belt buckles from county fairs and rodeos. She sat down at his desk and opened the bottom drawer, pulling out a bottle of whiskey he'd kept there for special occasions. She poured herself a glass and sat back in his chair, staring at the wall of family photos. Her phone rang. Madison. Sarah, you need to get out here right now. Madison's voice was shaking with rage. You need to fix this. I'm not fixing anything. Hell you're not. You're going to get your cattle out of my pool, you're going to apologize to my guests, and you're going to your pool, Sarah interrupted. Your pool that you built without permits on land that doesn't belong to you. Silence. Right, Madison? I know about the permits. I know about the fines. I know about the EPA inspection tomorrow. Did you think I wouldn't find out, Sarah? Did you think I was too stupid to figure it out? Too much of a country bumpkin to understand what you were doing to my family's land? Our land, Madison said coldly, and our family. In case you've forgotten, I haven't forgotten anything, including the fact that you haven't been part of this family for 10 years. You left Madison, you left all of us behind to chase your dreams in California, and now you want to come back and profit from everything we built while you were gone. Came back to save this place. You came back to exploit it. There's a difference. Sarah could hear voices in the background, people calling Madison's name. I have to go, Madison said. She bolted upright in her father's chair, where she'd fallen asleep sometime after Cassie left and before she'd finished the bottle of whiskey. Her neck was stiff, her mouth tasted like cotton, and the sound of emergency vehicles was getting closer. Through the study window, she could see the pool area in the harsh morning light. It looked like a war zone. Tables lay overturned and broken. White fabric from the collapsed tents fluttered in the breeze like surrender flags, and the crystal-clear pool water had turned brown with mud and debris. Thunder was still there, standing, hip-deep in the shallow end, contentedly munching on what appeared to be the remains of an ice sculpture. The sirens stopped. Sarah stumbled to the front window and saw 3 county sheriff's vehicles, an ambulance, and a truck from the Environmental Protection Agency pulling up the drive. Behind them came a news van with Channel 7's logo splashed across the side. "Perfect," Sarah muttered, running her hands through her tangled hair. "Just perfect." Her phone had 17 missed calls, 14 text messages, and 3 voicemails. Most were from numbers she didn't recognize, but several were from Madison, each one more frantic than the last. The final text, sent at 5:47 a.m., simply read, "You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy." Sarah was pulling on clean clothes when the doorbell rang. Despite the shared name standing on her porch, with his hat in his hands and a grim expression on his weathered face. "Morning, Sarah. Sorry to bother you so early, but we've got some questions about last night's incident." "Is anyone hurt?" Sarah asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Minor injuries only, thank the Lord. Few cuts and bruises, 1 broken wrist from a fall, but nothing serious. Your cattle, on the other hand, ... He gestured toward the pool area. "We're going to need to talk about that." Sarah followed him outside, where a small army of officials was documenting the scene. A woman in an EPA jacket was taking water samples from the pool, while a man with a camera photographed the damage. Ms. Martinez. A tall man in an expensive suit approached them. "I'm David Chen, attorney representing Ms. Madison Martinez. I need to inform you that my client intends to pursue full legal action for the damages caused by your ... livestock." "Your client?" Sarah looked around. "Where is Madison?" "She's at the hospital with one of the injured guests. She asked me to handle the preliminary legal matters." Chen pulled out a tablet and began scrolling through documents. "Preliminary estimates put the property damage at over $200,000. That doesn't include lost business opportunities, damage to my client's reputation, or potential lawsuits from injured guests." Sheriff Martinez stepped between them. "Hold on there, counselor. We're still investigating what happened here. Nobody's filing charges until we understand the full situation." "The situation is simple," Chen said coldly. "Ms. Sarah Martinez deliberately released dangerous animals into a gathering of innocent people, causing injury and significant property damage. It's a clear case of reckless endangerment." "Reckless endangerment?" Sarah's temper flared. "Those dangerous animals are domestic cattle, and this is a working ranch, not a playground. A working ranch that your sister legally owns." Chen shot back. "She had every right to host an event on her property." "Her property?" Sarah's voice rose. "Show me the deed that says this is her property." Chen smiled coldly and pulled out a document, signed and notarized last week. "Your sister now owns 49% of Martinez Ranch LLC with full rights to use the property for business purposes." Sarah stared at the paper, her blood running cold. "LLC? What LLC?" "The one your father established 3 years ago for tax purposes. Your sister inherited his shares when the will was probated." "That's impossible. My father never." "Your father was a smart man, Ms. Martinez. He understood the benefits of corporate structure." Chun's smile was razor-sharp. "Unfortunately, it seems he didn't fully explain the implications to you." Sarah felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. "I want to see that will. The original will, of course. I have copies right here." Chen handed her another document. "As you can see, your father left the ranch to both his daughters, equally. Your sister simply chose to exercise her rights in a more entrepreneurial fashion." Sarah scanned the document, her hands shaking. It looked official, legal, binding, but something was wrong. The language was too modern, too corporate. Her father had been a simple man who distrusted lawyers almost as much as he distrusted the government. "This isn't his handwriting," she said. "It's a typed document, Ms. Martinez. Very standard." The signature was witnessed by 2 attorneys and notarized completely legal. Sheriff Martinez was reading over Sarah's shoulder. "Sarah, honey, I hate to say it, but this looks legitimate." Sarah stared at the papers, feeling like she was drowning in legal jargon and corporate doublespeak. None of this made sense. Her father had always promised her the ranch. He'd talked about it constantly, made plans for improvements. "There's something else," Chen continued, pulling out another document given last night's incident. "This is a formal notice of partition action." Partition action. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "It means the property will be sold and the proceeds divided between the co-owners, very common in situations where partners can't agree on management decisions." Sheriff Martinez took the document from Sarah's numb fingers. "How long does she have?" 30 days to find a buyer willing to purchase her sister's share at fair market value. If not, the entire property goes to public auction. Sarah felt like she was watching herself from a distance, seeing her life disintegrate in slow motion. Approximately $2.3 million. The number hit Sarah like a physical blow. She didn't have $2 million. She didn't have $200,000. She barely had enough to cover the monthly expenses, and that was before factoring in the fines and legal costs that were undoubtedly coming. "Of course," Chen continued smoothly, "my client is prepared to be reasonable. She's willing to buy out your share for fair market value, allowing you to walk away with a substantial sum and start fresh somewhere else." "This is my home," Sarah said quietly. "It's a business asset, Ms. Martinez, and given your demonstrated inability to manage it responsibly." Chen gestured toward the disaster zone that had been the pool area. "Excuse me, but I need to speak with whoever's responsible for this property." "Would be both Ms. Martinez and my client," Chen said quickly. "Well, you've got serious problems. The pool construction appears to have been done without proper environmental permits, and the runoff from last night, event, has contaminated Willow Creek. We're looking at potential violations of the Clean Water Act." "What does that mean?" Sarah asked, though she was afraid she already knew. "Plus, criminal charges, if we determine there was willful negligence." Sarah's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the porch steps, staring at the collection of officials who were systematically documenting the destruction of Sarah. "I've known you since you were knee-high to a grasshopper. This doesn't seem like you." "It's not like me," Sarah said numbly. "Nothing about this is like me." "Then why? Why did you let those cattle loose?" Sarah looked at him, this man, who'd known her father, who'd watched her grow up, who'd been at every county fair and church, social and community event that had shaped her life. "Because I was angry, because I felt betrayed, because I thought I was fighting for my family's legacy, and now I think I've lost everything anyway." The news reporter was walking toward them, her cameraman in tow. Sarah could see the hungry look in her eyes, the anticipation of a story that would play well on the evening news. "Ms. Martinez, I'm Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News. Can you comment on what happened here last night?" "No comment," Sarah said. "Automatically, our sources say you deliberately sabotaged your sister's business event. Is that true?" I said no comment. "Is it true that you've been fighting your sister's attempts to modernize the ranch? That you're opposed to progress and development?" Sarah looked up at the reporter, seeing herself through the woman's eyes. The crazy rancher lady who'd stampeded cattle through a pool party. The bitter sister who couldn't handle change. The backwards countrywoman who stood in the way of progress. "You want a story?" Sarah stood up slowly. "Here's your story. This ranch has been in my family for 4 generations. My great-grandfather built it from nothing. My grandfather expanded it during the Depression. My father spent his life maintaining it, improving it, loving it." The camera was rolling now, the reporter nodding encouragingly. "My sister left this place 10 years ago and never looked back. She moved to California, Chase,